Welcome, hello and hi my creative friends. Today we're checking out a super popular pencil that you can only get online. From a Chinese company that makes a whole lot of pretty much everything art related comes a very popular, I have to say very trendy, box of pencils. Boasting soft cores, apparently extraordinary dynamic blending, and they are pretty great for adult colouring. Today I bring you the ArrtX 126 coloured pencils. Finally, we are checking out something from ArrtX, and that is ArrtX with 2 R's, by the way. And I think these are almost the most requested pencil I've had in quite a while. Of course, yes, the number one is still the Caran d'Ache, which we're going to get to when I win the lottery. But as you've asked, and thanks to the lovely folk over at ArrtX who have generously sent me this pack to test, as always, with no strings attached, we are getting a chance to check out this really quite different looking pack of pencils. ArrtX is one of those really well-known online-only companies. Online because that's pretty much the only place you can buy them. They sprung up around 10 years ago, 2015 to be exact, and they originally started producing paint pens, which we're checking out in a few weeks' time. And since then have moved on to markers, pastels, gel pens, gouache, and of course, several ranges of coloured pencils. So yeah, they make a whole lot of stuff. ArrtX is a company that states their focus is on creating originally designed art products, which actually sounds pretty great. But just because they make about everything in the art supply world, does that mean they're actually any good? Let's do what we do every time and throw a series of tests at our ArrtX and answer that very question. First up, let's check out the design of the ArrtX coloured pencils. This cute green box here is the ArrtX 126 pack of coloured pencils. It does come shrink wrapped in this plastic here, but I got excited and pulled it off so I could have a sneaky peek at them. If we jump on over to the ArrtX website and find our pencil selection, we can see, while it's not super obvious, there are actually 4 ranges of pencils available. The new soft core oil-based drawing pencils, a set of watercolour pencils, 3 lots of sketching pencils, which appear to be several ranges of grey leads, and finally, what we have here, the drawing range of pencils. There is a 72 set available, and what we have here, the 126 kit. So a decent sized range for a pencil kit. Pleasantly, there is actually a decent amount of info available on the page about this range. If we jump back over to our 126 kit of drawing pencils, this is almost a cube. It's green, and immediately these adorable little bunny characters surrounded by yellow flowers on the front jump straight out at me. Okay, so what we have here is the ArrtX logo, 126 colours, and in silver spot gloss, the words saturated colours, soft core, artist quality, and a big bright coloured pencils. I do love me a metallic spot gloss. If I start to turn it over, it is a little bit rattly and already wants to come apart. On the back, we have a decent sized if digital swatch, the core size, and info that these are break resistant and easy to blend. We'll see about that. So if I flip it back up and watch this, the top slides off to reveal our pencils. They are really uniquely 2 lots of 63 pencils stored in 2 vertical holders, or stands, I'm guessing. Very unique. There is a card here. It's a thank you for buying their product. Thanks are always very welcome, and it's a cute little card. Okay. So let me just pull a couple of our pencils out. They do feel a bit wobbly in the base, and I think it's actually because while each of the 3 rows in the base are separated by shaped foam, they aren't individually cut foam circles. So as the base bows in the middle, the pencils wobble around a little bit. Speaking of those pencils, let's have a close-up look at them. This is the ArrtX Drawing Coloured Pencil. It's quite light, very glossy, and feels very smooth in my hand, quite pleasantly so. They are a full-barreled colour pencil with, as you can see, already quite a lot of original design work on them. Our ArrtX pencils are an average size of 175mm and a standard thickness of 7.9, so 8mm. The barrel of these pencils are made of basswood, and the core is a robust 3.8mm core made of what is apparently a mix of oil and wax. If we look from tip to tail, we have a double-sided pencil. Our first side is quite clean and simple until we arrive at a silver ArrtX logo, followed by a star inside a star and the words colour pencils. If we flip it over, now here's that original design they're talking about. We have a series of stars and dots till we get to a barcode, a 3-dot break, and the pencil details, which is an ACP number, which I don't know what that is, the pencil color code, and then below that, the watercolor name. The end is just a simple rounded paint dipped end. I love an original pencil design, and the packaging here is, I have to say, pretty fun. It's stylish, different, and this design is almost quite usable. Now, I'm saying almost here because the idea is a great idea, particularly if you're buying these as a gift set or for yourself and planning on using the packaging to store or display them. But usability. The foam inserts here stretch in the middle really quite easily, which means that as soon as you pull a few pencils out, particularly near the middle, they all sort of just fall out. And it's a bit annoying, and I can see it getting more annoying as I use them. Apparently this box is an improved design from what ArrtX used to have, but I feel it just needs a little bit more engineering to make it work as they intend. The characters on the box though, like the pencil themselves, are very pretty and very cute. But all the design work here, particularly our rabbit friends, and I guess all the stars along the barrel of the pencil, make these pencils feel quite young. Which is an interesting choice, as they are often advertised by ArrtX as being great for adult colouring. I like the look because I like cute stuff, but this whole feel might be a turn-off for some people as they really don't feel all that adult at all. Looks aside, it's the performance that's the important part for us. So let's get to testing these bad boys, starting with our saturation and vibrancy. As always, I jam way too much into my tests, but let's start with something very simple and always fun. Let's swatch our 126 ArrtX Drawing Pencils. Even before I start, I've noticed something great about our ArrtX. Thankfully, ArrtX has separated these pencils by colour. That is, they match in the way they come to how the colour chart is set out, which I've reproduced here. That's not uncommon for pencils in a tin or box, but a bit less uncommon when they are in something like this cube. It just makes it so much easier for me to find what I'm looking for in this swatching. Thank you for that, ArrtX. We have started with our white and gone through quite a nice metallic silver and gold to the ArrtX black, which just isn't super black. So far, the pencils are feeling quite nice in my hand. I'm noticing they feel a little bit catchy when I start with them, but by the time I get to the end of my tiny swatches, they feel quite buttery. It's almost like the cores are heating up slightly and becoming softer as I go along, which makes them feel much nicer. They are quite comfy to hold overall, and even though they are glossy and the barrel paint is smooth, I'm not struggling to hold them in my hand. I think this is actually a really pleasant range of colours the ArrtX has here, and they all seem to be different, so no doubles I can see, which is great. One of the common problems with bigger, more budget-friendly pencil kits is that often the differences in the colour are too small to be usable or seen by your eye, which can look like doubles. But so far, these guys are pretty good. We're on to our second page here, and it looks like we're ending up with a really nice array of skin tones, browns, warm and cool greys, and then bang! Some amazing, very fluoros. Cameras just don't capture fluoro. It's a thing. But damn, take it from me, the ArrtX fluoros are some really good, really surprising fluoros. Before we get into chatting about our swatches, let's throw another element in here and test the buildup of that saturation. For this part of our test, what we're doing is picking 4 colours plus our dominant black and white, and we're measuring the pigment put down across various weights. The way we're going to be doing this is drawing at 5 different pressures: 25 grams, 50 grams, 100 grams, 200 grams, and 400 grams, so light to heavy. As that pressure builds up, hopefully the pencil should become more and more saturated. And for any paper people out there, I'm just going to use basic 140 GSM white multimedia paper. For this test today, the pencils I've chosen are red, Carmine Red, AT3150, green, True Green, AT5066, blue, Cobalt Teal Blue, AT2015, yellow, Light Yellow, AT1012, black, AT0099, and white, AT00001. Let's get started on our 25 grams. First thoughts is that they're going down quite easily. Each colour seems relatively consistent with the other colour, and I'm finding it very easy to keep them around the 25 gram weight, which is great. Not super saturated for 25 grams in what is apparently a combination oil and wax core, and really very light for what I'd expect. Onto our 50 grams here. The 50 grams is going down pretty well. There is a massive jump here with our red, but that green, blue, and yellow, and I guess black are very consistent. Onto our 100 grams. Interestingly, while the red seems much denser and much more vibrant, I don't think the green, blue, yellow, and now black are a doubling from the 50 grams. Our 200 grams is next, and while it's a nice red, it's not a doubling from our 100 grams, but our remaining colors have doubled nicely. Finally, our 400 grams. This is our heaviest weight, and I feel I'm having a bit of a struggle holding the weight here for this one. I really don't think it's a doubling in intensity and saturation from that 200 grams. We are getting a bit of burnishing here, which is also interesting to see. Let's check out that white pencil on our black cardboard. That 25 grams is again very light, but there's a definite doubling with the 50 grams. The 100 grams and now the 200 grams are very similar, much like our colors, and that 400 grams isn't unfortunately super saturated. Okay, so these are quite interesting pencils. I'm never quite sure what to expect when a manufacturer tells me that it's a combination oil and wax core. And just so you know, I did confirm that core composition with ArrtX just to be sure. Cores are often a mix of more than just one thing, but usually the manufacturer states it's one or the other. On our scales, these have been pretty light in saturation at our lighter ends. So I'm guessing if they do have wax in them, it's not a lot. Overall though, I am enjoying them. They are fairly consistent as our test has shown in laydown, and at its midweights, they are quite easy to control and feel great in my hand. That said though, when I'm hitting the heavyweight around the 400 gram mark, they do jump around a little bit, and again, really aren't quite as saturated at this weight as I would have liked them to be. Strangely, I am also quite liking how the feel of these pencils changes as I'm using them. They start off almost a little bit scratchy and catchy, almost rough, but then they get really silky smooth. It's almost like the pigment is heating up, but it feels nice and buttery when it does. The color range is excellent with 126 pencils, particularly 126 pencils that are actually all different. You're gonna have a great range that you can create with. I'm finding for the most part they are bright and vibrant without being too much. There is a couple of standouts there. Those metallic pencils were surprisingly good, and the fluoros were possibly the best fluoro pencils I've ever seen. It's also worth mentioning a great range of skin tones and greys, which is personally something I always look for in a pencil pack. On a negative, yes, I am already starting to find that the box is a little bit inconvenient. I'm very glad these pencils come organized, but if I take out too many at once and don't quite put the pencil back exactly where it's supposed to go straight away, things are going to get quite messy really quickly. Let's give our first score for our first test. Using our scale of A to F with S being superb, let's look at how these 6 colors performed. They have an excellent color range, but not quite as vibrant as I'd expect. So I'm giving the ArrtX a B for today's saturation and vibrancy. And that sticks them right here. Our next test today is our single pencil gradient test. This is the test where we see just how well these pencils can gradient. As always, it's a super important test as it tells us a lot about the characteristics of a pencil and how much control we have over it. What we're looking for here is a nice seamless gradient while taking into account how easy it is to go from a very heavy pressure to a very light pressure and how the pencil feels while doing so. Let's go get started. Starting with our red pencil. And that's going down quite nicely. We have a nice, dense heavy end, a decent mid-range, and we are gradienting down well into our light end. Overall, a nice red. Our green is next. It does feel like there's a little bit of a ledge from our heavy to our mid-weight, and like our saturation and vibrancy test, it does feel like we're missing quite a lot of that light end. Our blue is next, starting very strong, but it is very similar to our green here. I'd usually expect more in the 100 to 50 gram mark, particularly as that pencil is nice and warm for these gradient tests. Our yellow. I'm holding this one a bit heavier for longer, but like that blue and green, as soon as we drop below the 100 grams, it gets a little too light. Our black is much better. From our heavy to our light end, it is much closer to that red pencil than anything else. Let's try our white on some black cardboard. This feels very much like our green, blue, and yellow, getting very light very quickly. Not a super vibrant white, it appears. So that was our gradient test, and you know what? Not super surprising results. The red and the black were fine. Pretty decent gradients, to be fair, but our other test subjects really struggled with the lighter end of our gradient, very much like our scale test. Whatever the core composition mix is here, it's not a core that gives you much vibrancy or saturation in the light ends. So for an underwhelming gradient test, but one that wasn't terrible, I'm giving the ArrtX a C+ in gradienting. And that sticks them right here. It's time for the blending test, and as we all liked it last time, I'm including a little bit of layering. Ooh! Blending is one of, if not the most important thing I look for in working with coloured pencils. A good blend takes our art from the ordinary to the extraordinary. A bad one? Well, let's just say it makes everything much harder. Like last week, I'm adding the same layering test in because some pencils just layer much better than mix, and I think it's just really interesting to see which ones they are. First up, we're taking a look at our 4 primary colours, red to green and blue to yellow, and we're going to, you guessed it, blend them. Starting with that red gradient on our dissimilar colours blend. This red is going down in another great gradient. Our red is quite a nice vibrant colour here as well. Let's head up and cross over it with our green. As we start to cross over, we do have a bit of mixing in the middle. It's very clumpy, but it is a purpley brown colour coming through. Onto our blue and our yellow mix. This blue has gone down nicely, but again, I couldn't get any real light end. Up goes our yellow, and while it's got a lot of the same issues as the blue, there's obviously a nice green coming through there. Quite a nice mix actually. Onto our transitional blends, where I'm trying to transition between 2 similar colours as best that I can. Our first mix, our red and yellow, is starting off fairly nicely. Without fail, the yellow with most pencils we've worked with has been one of the easiest colours to blend. I'm finding that it is mixing and blending a bit here, but I'm really having to do a lot of work to make that happen. There's a nice orange coming through, but it's not an easy orange to produce. Onto our green and blue now. The green and blue are darker, so there's never quite as much difference in the middle colour. We're starting to get a bit of the blend here in the middle, but interestingly, the amount of times I go over it, it's just really lightening up that aqua colour in the middle. Let's try something a little bit more advanced with a sphere. The yellow base has gone down nicely, and I'm trying to mix that green in. Again, as with our transitional blends, it is blending, but it's taking an awful lot of work to make it work. The sphere is nice, but for the amount of work, it should be a lot better. Let's just jump straight across to our layering test. What I'm doing here is putting down a consistent layer with each of our colors, plus our black, and then trying to add another layer on top of that to see what happens. Last episode, I only did 3 or 4 layers, but this time I'll keep going till they start burnishing or we hit 8 layers. 8 is just a random number, but it's a very solid number. Layer 1 is down and we are on to the second layer. As we go through this layer, it's getting much more solid. Part of that's the paper choice, of course, but a lot of it is what we want to see, which is layering. Onto layer 3, and let's start burning through these to see how many layers we can put on. Layer 4 is next, and we're getting quite dense here. Layer 5 is building those colors up very nicely, and layer 6, there we go. These pencils are starting to burnish the paper nicely. So there we go, 6 layers for the ArrtX drawing pencils. Okay, so some good results and some just okay results for the ArrtX blending tests. These pencils just aren't super saturated and struggle at the light end, but what that's been meaning is it's a lot of effort to combine and mix the colors on the page. Our dissimilar color test was actually blending okay, but the colors were really clumpy when they did mix. You can see the biggest struggle these pencils have had with our transitional blend. The red and yellow made a nice orange, but realistically, That took an awfully big effort to get that. It feels like without that lighter end, we're always going to have to work with these pencils. I think it's just a harder core, and that's what the issue is here. With things like the sphere test, because we generally do put in more effort into it, it really wasn't such a strain to work with them because we sort of expected it to take time. Now our layers, 6 layers. This is our first test where we've counted the layers, so I honestly have no idea if 6 is any good or not. But what I do know is that at 6 layers, where we've burnished these pencils, they're still not super saturated, and that isn't great. The vibrancy just hasn't built up with our layers as much as I'd like. As the layers build up, I also found that it became harder and harder to use these pencils. Much like the other parts of this test, it took a lot of work, and I felt like I was forcing that pigment onto the page. For an okay blend, but one I had to work my little tush off for, I'm giving the ArrtX a C- in the blending test. If we stick them on our scale, that puts them right here. This is the test where we check out what, if anything, our white pencil will do. The ArrtX White has been an okay pencil today, but like a lot of our colours, it's not a super saturated pencil. So I'm not sure if it's gonna do enough to be a usable white. But let's not prejudge. For this test, I'm using our blending test that we prepared earlier and bringing our white pencil in and laying it over the top of our primary colours. Let's go see what happens. Let's bring in that white over our first dissimilar blend, our red and green. I promise you I am pushing down here, but no, it's actually not really doing anything at all. The same result is happening with our blue and yellow. I don't even think it's lightening that blend. Our transitional blend is next, and I think it's lightening that orange very, very slightly, but because we have so many layers down there already, it's so minimal. I honestly can't even see it doing anything in our green and blue, and our sphere looks exactly the same as when we started. I try very hard not to swear because I'm a lady, damn it. But this white really sucks. It has done virtually nothing to our blending test. It hasn't lightened, and it really hasn't mixed that pigment at all on the page. It's basically done a big fat load of nothing. I was really hoping that because this white doesn't seem particularly bright, that maybe it would act as a good burnishing or blending tool. But honestly, it hasn't even done that, at least for these pencils anyway. There just doesn't seem to be any extra give in the pigment once that it's already been put down. So this white as burnishing tool doesn't do very much. Now, it might work for burnishing other softer wax-based pencils, however, perhaps the Prismacolor. Anyway, for a very poor white factor, I'm giving the ArrtX a D-. Only really missing out on an F because it did slightly lighten the orange. For the colour accuracy test, we're checking if the pigment that the pencil puts down matches the colour on the pencil's barrel. As always, it's a very important test because it's the easiest way for us to tell what colour we actually have in our hand. This is even more important today as I really don't think anyone would ever use that swatch to find out the colour. So with this many pencils, you'd do it by eye. So how I'm going to do this test is simple. We're bringing in the pencil's barrel and we're putting it next to the gradient that we created earlier. Starting with our red. And that's immediately a very different red, much darker on the barrel. Our green is next, and that's exactly the same as our red. The blue is following suit, exactly the same. Not surprisingly, so too is that yellow. The black is the best, surprisingly, but the barrel is still darker than the pigment put down. Unfortunately, these colours are all much darker than the pigment they put down. And in the case of the blue and the green, almost totally different shades. While they struggle a bit with the saturation, the colours these pencils put down are actually pretty nice, so it's a bit of a shame that they couldn't match the barrel to the core, except perhaps the black, which was the best out of the bunch here. For a pretty poor result, I'm giving them a C- for the colour accuracy test. And that slots them right in here. It's time for the break factor, the test where I try and bring science into this whole playing with pencils business. There is more to the break test than simply snapping pencils for the educational fun of it. This test gives us an idea of the pencil's strengths and helps us work out if the pencil's core is soft or hard. It also gives us an insight into the pencil's manufacturing consistency. A relatively similar breakpoint in a pencil is usually a sign of quality in the manufacturing and design. So, do the ArrtX have a consistent mix in their core to get a similar snapping point every single time? Let's go find out. To make this test as consistent as possible across all the pencils we're going to review, I've set up a couple of controls. I'm going to sharpen each pencil to a point. I'm then going to dull them slightly by drawing 3 lines at pressure. Basically, this will make sure we don't have a super fine point that will break immediately. I'm then going to be using a 45-degree square to get a consistent angle of pressure. Makes sense? Let's go and break some leads. Starting with our red, as always, this red has been probably the best of all our colours today in most of our tests, but I'm not quite sure what to expect from it here. I've taken off the tip and the angle is set. 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800 and snap! 897 grams. Quite a respectable break point for our first pencil. Onto our green, setting up the point and now our angle. 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 7 and snap! 766 grams. Not quite as high as our red. Let's check out that blue. The blue, green and yellow have felt fairly similar today. Let's see if that trend continues. The weight is on. 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, 1 kilo and snap! 1069 grams. Very different to the blue and much higher than our red. Now setting up our yellow. Let's start with that weight. 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900 and snap! 959 grams. Less than our blue, but still higher than our red and green. Onto our black pencil. Taking the tip and setting up our angle, time for the weight. 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, 1 kilo, 1100, 1200 and snap! 1234 grams. That looks to be our highest yet. Finally, onto our last pencil, that white. It's been a very light white through all of our tests, so that may mean it's quite a hard white. 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, 1 kilo and snap! 1097 grams. Quite a hard white. And that was our break test. Not bad, but not great. These pencils' break points are a little bit all over the place, unfortunately. You may have also noticed this time that I was trying to make sure the cores on these were rotated to the thickest point, as it does look like the ArrtX cores aren't quite central to the barrel, which can affect at what point they break. Hopefully, I've given them the best chance to get an honest result here. Anyway, the lowest break point was the green at 766 grams, with the highest being black at 1234. Now, that means there is a difference of 468 grams here, with every other color pencil being scattered around between them. The average break point was 1004 grams, which slots them right in here on our scale, below the Winsor & Newton and above the Black Widow pencils. Overall, while that break point means they are relatively robust, they're not super consistent with those breaks, which is a bit of a shame. For an average, pretty inconsistent break point, I'm giving the ArrtX a C in the break factor. And that slots them right in here. It's time for our last test, the joy factor. Do these pencils spark joy, or do they cause despair? This test is very much just chatting about my personal opinions, which I formed across all of these tests while we do some art with the ArrtX drawing pencils. I've picked a little piece today to draw that isn't really from anywhere or of anything in particular, although it might be in the future, but it's keeping with the whole ArrtX feel, being something cute and something that I can make use of the color we have available. Speaking of color, 126 colors is a great color range for any pencil kit, and the ArrtX's choice of those 126 colors is actually really excellent. It's one of the major sells I think you should consider if this kit is for you. There is a lot you can do with this kit, and I'm really loving that it doesn't feel like there are any duplicates in it. The range of specialty colors, particularly those fluoros, browns, skin tones, and grays, is on point for any artist. The design of the pencils I quite like, but I really don't feel that the design suits the vibe of adult coloring. The whole presentation and what's here with this kit feels like something any younger artist would absolutely love. 12-year-old Sunshine would treasure absolutely everything about this kit. The packaging is a cool display idea, but still not perfect and does become a bit annoying, particularly if you're swapping pencils in and out, as yes, after a while, the foam stretches and the pencils start bunching up. Test-wise, they haven't scored crash hot, but they are on parity with pencils around the same level. That's because realistically, they are a budget, albeit well put together set of budget pencils. The ArrtX retails for $90 Australian for this 126 pencil kit, which is about $60 US. For what it is, which is realistically a very good selection of younger coloring pencils, that's good bang for your buck. I do think that this pencil range is let down quite a lot by the issues they have with lack of saturation at the lighter weights, lack of a lighter end overall, and most importantly, with blending and layering. This piece that I'm doing right now is a really good, really obvious example of that. I am really struggling to add darker colors over the lighter ones here. It feels like that what pigment there is saturating the paper too quickly. So when I add the darker colors for contrast, it's very difficult to make that pigment stay where I put it on top of the other layers. So I can't do the level of detail that I would normally like. All of these problems feel like whatever the composition of the core is, it just really isn't cutting it to make this piece look how I'd like it to. I may have to try the ArrtX's new softer oil-based pencil range to see if they're any better. But the question remains, do the ArrtX drawing pencils spark joy for me? I'm gonna say yes and no. To me as an artist, they just don't do what I want them to. Our picture is done and our little friends look very cute and poppy and overall pretty great. But the pencils haven't done what I'd have liked them to do with this picture. Particularly with the blending side of things, it just hasn't turned out like I'd have liked. But I still really love the color range that ArrtX has, and as flawed as it is, this box display design is really cool. I'd be very happy to buy these for gifts for any tweens or younger beginner artists in my life because I think they would absolutely love them. And I know it would impress the heck out of all their friends. But I don't think I'd get them for myself. So for a fun pencil that perhaps slightly underperforms more than I'd like, I'm giving the ArrtX Drawing Pencils a solid B- in the joy factor. Slotting them right in here. We're almost done, but not quite. The last thing we're going to do today is give the ArrtX a final big score and decide how to class them. So, are the ArrtX student, hobbyist, or professional? Let's be honest, this is not a big surprise. I think today I'm going to class these as student. A great color range, but still a lot of problems you'd struggle with if you want more from your pencil. Now, if I take all of the results these pencils have had from all the other tests today and aggregate them for our big score, they receive a C. Well done, ArrtX. Ow! While they might be angry at me for breaking them, that slots them right in here. That is really it this time. Thank you very much for checking out the ArrtX drawing pencils this week with me. What do you think? Do you use them? Do you love them? Or are they too young feeling for you as an adult? Thank you to ArrtX once more for sending me these pencils. I am super slow in making these videos, as you know, so I'm sure they thought that I'd just run off with them. If you want your own set of the ArrtX, I've stuck some links below and every little click helps. Now, next time. I'm not going to say next week, as I'm just busy, guys, so I am terrible at predicting when I'm going to get these done, but the next time we're back with the best of British with the staple of the Derwent range, the Colour Soft. Until then, however, if you want more of my face in your face, have a little look at the links below. We have also got a really active Discord that you can sign up for, and if you want to chat and come hang out with us on Twitch, I'm there most days. That's it for now, everyone. Have a brilliant day. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.